My name is Ryan Draper, and I am the owner and operator of Cycling 101. And Cycling 101 is a company that I've created to kind of encompass everything cycling, with the kind of the main focus as being coaching, instruction, and consulting. So I started cycling when I was about 12 years old, and that was being used for some cross training for Nordic ski racing. Got involved in some triathlons and duathlons while I was a teenager, had some good success with that. And then in 1998, I moved to Canmore, Alberta here, and took up endurance mountain bike racing. And shortly after that, having some early on success, I was approached by a number of individuals who are also looking to do some mountain bike racing and were looking for some guidance. And since the type of racing that I was doing was a little bit new and out there, it was ultra endurance cycling, so 24-hour solo racing. And some stage racing. People were asking me if I could help them out, kind of construct a program that they would need to follow to be a finisher or even reach the podium kind of thing. So it all really started from there. A lot of the process for me was a self-education. I've got a background in kinesiology, exercise physiology, but that only went so far. And a lot of books. My library is fairly extensive in the coaching and mental training and nutrition. So a lot of that kind of combined knowledge and kind of finding the common threads between different philosophies and theories kind of was my end goal. And for a small price, I would part with that knowledge to some others. So my average day is usually pretty crammed, full. Wake up in the morning, make sure I get all the essentials, coffee, greens, all of that stuff. Usually get myself prepared to head to work. I commute by bike to work. It's a short commute, all downhill to work, about 5 kilometers, and then get to work. Usually they're one of the first ones. I am the general manager of a local bike shop here, so my days start fairly early, especially in the summertime when things are busy. Then typically from there, serve customers most of the day and get through whatever meetings and that kind of thing that I might have going on. Evenings are a little bit different after commuting home and taking care of the dogs, getting them fed and walked, all that kind of fun stuff. Then typically get into more kind of athlete/coaching mode. Usually, it's a run or a ride or some session in the evenings that I would take part in. So for me, life balance has always been a bit of an issue. In the beginning, as an athlete, is a fairly selfish kind of attitude towards your goals, that kind of thing. I think it's really been my wife that has kind of grounded me and brought me into a more well-rounded lifestyle. She's very involved with yoga and meditation, and just a really, really happy, fun person to be around. So she always manages to take the serious edge off for me. For the most part, my social life is really, bikes. And so at work with my athletes, out on group rides, that kind of stuff, that's really the bulk of the social interaction that I do involve in. Obviously family and other very specific friends, those are, more scheduled, times. But, for us, we don't have children, so it makes it a little bit easier, I think, to have that balance. But there are times when you get a little bit stressed, and sometimes you need to get off the grid and go ride your bike for a day somewhere away to recharge the batteries. But I think I do a pretty decent job of the balance. What I love about coaching is the ROI. And for anyone who's into economics or small business or big business, return on investment. It's huge. I think, I put in, my heart and soul into dealing with my athletes. And the return on that investment is absolutely huge. It's probably one of the most gratifying things that I think I've ever done in my life. You know, whether it's a small little one-on-one session as a coach or as an instructor, you know, I just get so much joy from seeing people progress and knowing that they went from someplace to someplace greater, you know, with the basic knowledge and breakdown that I was capable of giving them, whether it takes an hour to get them there or whether it takes 5 years. It's just still really, really gratifying. So that'd probably be why I love coaching so much. My work ethic, I think, really came from a very young age. At 8 years old, I had my first job. Always had 1 or 2 jobs kind of on the go. It's unlike me to not have 3 jobs kind of at one time. You know, I think I just have this, you know, desire to continue growing, continue learning. And because of it, I don't like really sitting back and sitting still. I feel if I'm sitting still, that there's something going on in the world that I might be missing out on. So I like to be engaged. You know, it's very, very frustrating when I have a minor injury or I get sick, because I feel like I'm losing ground on the world, and it's you know, probably one of the hardest times, you know, that I go through. Luckily, I haven't had any long-term illnesses or injuries that have kept me down for very long. But you know, the structure I had from 12 years old, being a Nordic ski racer back in Ontario with the only paid coach on the Nordic ski scene in Canada, it really set the tone for things. And he has been a silent mentor, you know, for a long time for me now. He passed away just a few years ago, and you know, instilled some really cool values that I carry today, as far as, you know, work ethic and dealing with athletes and stuff. So I think he was, you know, Coach Dave, he was a big part of kind of that work ethic. And you know, I truly don't believe that, you know, you get anything for free. You know, if you want it, you got to work for it. When I first started out with ultra endurance racing, the longest thing that existed was Ironman. And that was, you know, at that time, 12 to 15 hours was your average Ironman finishing time. There was no documentation in any nutrition books or coaching philosophies that really went beyond that. And so what I had to do was start pulling common threads from different philosophies that existed in training manuals, you know, books by various authors in different sports. You know, I focused mainly on, you know, road cycling, mountain biking, triathlon, and running. And you know, some of the common threads that I really pulled was this, you know, this well-rounded approach. And I've kind of developed it as a theory, you know, a coaching theory that I abide by, and it's, you know, the theory of marginal gains.
I'm 53, and I've grown up in a world of competitive football and team sports and combative sports. I was actually a national powerlifting champion, so not exactly good feedstock for Ryan to coach an endurance athlete. I don't look like an endurance athlete, I don't weigh like an endurance athlete, but when I looked at what I could give myself a new challenge at my age, endurance sports is actually that thing. We lose our top end when we're getting older, but putting up with a lot of suffering is something that older guys can actually do. And so that was my kind of conversion to endurance, and finding a guy like Draper that's gone through every war possible was a real uptick in my desire to kind of continue.
So one of the tools that I use as a coach is technology, and I kind of use it as a little bit different of a tool objectively. So technology will allow me to see a large number of things, from heart rate, distance, time, power and wattage if it's to do with a bike. What I really like about technology is that no workouts can be fudged. These are all workouts that, they have to be completed and the data has to be there for it to appear. So this graph right here is a representation of the entire workout. It contains RPM, revolutions per minute, of his cadence on the bike, BPMs, which is beats per minute, as well as wattage and kilometers per hour. For the sake of the fact that he was inside, we're gonna hide kilometers per hour and clean the graph up a little bit. We can also take what's called a smoothing factor and we can smooth the graph out a little bit just to kind of get a general trending of what the workout was looking like. And one of the notable things that we can see right here is that RPM and wattage is fairly consistent during intervals, but we do have these red lines that are climbing, and this is what we would consider to be cardiac drift. And cardiac drift is something that we typically see when riders are riding indoors and the ambient temperature of the room is getting hotter, or if they're nearing the end of a workout and they're maybe getting a little bit dehydrated, or quite possibly they're just trying to push a little bit of the envelope at the end of the workout to try and impress their coach.
I have the luxury of choosing a coach, and so I think there's a couple of things that are important. The technical aspect is certainly one. Do you know the technical aspects of riding and racing? And I mean, that's a tick in Ryan's column for sure. The second is about, have you gone through the wars? I think there are certain sports where you can become an expert and not having gone through it. I don't think endurance mountain biking is one of them. I think, those deep, dark holes that you get into, unless you've been through them, you can't relate to them, and you can't help that athlete through. And I really appreciate it. The first race that we did together, there was a couple of moments where he just calmed me down and kind of refocused, and everything's great, and that's really appreciative. So having gone through it, the technical aspects, but I think the most important thing and the reason that I think we're being successful as a pair is alignment of vision, alignment of personalities, and just generally getting along. The winter fat biking event at Canmore was a super interesting role reversal for me. It was my first chance to support Ryan, who's my coach, and kind of put myself in his shoes of making sure that I have hydration when he needs it. And it was super interesting. I was more nervous as the support guy than I ever have been as an athlete. Like, I was watching him, when is he coming in, how's he doing, it was, and I completely discounted that as an athlete. I'd never done that. The other aspect that was completely inspiring is just that event. The conditions were just about unmanageable. I think 70 people started a bike race, and I think 5 finished. It was incredibly difficult conditions, and to see how deep he dug has been with me just about every workout since. If he can do it, I can do it, right? So in essence, to be inspired to watching him ride was one thing, but to put yourself in the shoes of somebody that's supporting was actually a really good thing for an athlete to do.
We're here on the Spray Lakes Road, and today what we're going to be doing is some exercises in standing while riding uphill. So it's about minus 14 out right now, a little bit chilly, but we'll be moving, so shouldn't be too bad. Well, Paul's longer term training goals really have to do with really long events. And so when we look at this as a tool in his tool belt, we'll be able to highlight places on specific race courses where this skill will be implemented. So really long climbs, that could be 10, 15 minutes long. Those are places where he's gonna wanna change up from being static seated to being dynamic standing, and changing up the way that the whole body is positioned. So changing up the way that the glutes fire, changing up the way that the quads fire, lengthening the spine in the back and sitting more upright.
That gives us a really good starting point of kind of where you're at right now. So I think a little bit of what's going on is the body staying very straight and very static in the middle. And what we want to see is we want to see a shift of that weight and the body to the one side and then bringing it over to the other.
Really unload the side that's not being used.
Exactly. But we don't want to, over exaggerate it. We just want to feel the tipping point of that bike kind of going over and then coming back, just in control.
So in the wintertime, we use fat bikes for training, and we find that there's different skill sets that we get from fat biking that translate directly over to mountain biking. What I find is, just the way that the tire has traction on snow is so much more diligent than what it has on, pavement or hard packed trail. So what we're looking to do is give the rider greater proprioception of what that bike is capable of doing in different conditions. This could translate right over to desert sand, really muddy conditions, boggy conditions, understanding what it is you're inputting into the bike and how it translates into forward momentum, I think is a really a good skill. It also teaches a whole lot of patience. So, sometimes less is more, really muddy conditions. You've really got to understand pedaling dynamics, use the least amount of energy as possible, be really efficient. And fat bikes, because they're a slight little bit heavier and snow conditions are variable, not even day by day, but literally by every 10-foot section. You can have ice, hard packed snow, loose snow, corn snow, all in the matter of less than a kilometer. So being adaptable and identifying those conditions really helps and translates directly over into summer riding. Yeah, so during the Grizzly event, the Fat Bike Marathon, we had some very challenging conditions. The snow had fallen pretty much like the last 72 hours leading into the event. The snow had very little cohesion. So what we were having to do is be very diligent on the pedals as far as climbing goes, and we were definitely walking our bikes quite a bit. But the place where I would say this technique really kind of stood out for me was between the transition area and the first climb. There was a no racing zone. And what I typically did is I put my hands, kind of as wide as I could on the bar, stood up and stretched out my low back while putting it in a tougher gear, just to give my legs a little bit of reprieve and kind of change that positioning up a little bit. Doing that every lap really found that helped to keep my back nice and loose and allowed me to get on and off the bike quickly.
So this pylons are actually my favorite, because what I can do is I can manipulate distance between turns, and we can take a skill set that may be done or executed once effectively, and we can slow it down to its core principles and make sure that the athlete is actually doing it correct very, 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 very slowly. And then from there, we can pick up the speed. That was kind of our main objective for this technical section, was to kind of give you a taste and get you to feel it for the first time. Now you've got a really positive point of reference for where it is, and you'll be able to revisit that. The next piece of homework that I'm going to send you home with is on the trainer. What I want you to do is I want you to set up like an iPad or your iPhone with a video, and I want to actually see what it looks like on the trainer.
I think the biggest thing for me as a coach that I would ideally like to be remembered for. And I think I probably will be remembered for this. I don't give a lot of praise. I am not a coddler. I don't sugarcoat anything. It takes a hell of a lot to impress me. And we celebrate pretty mildly, if you will. I think by eliminating the praise and just, kind of being peripheral a little bit, always makes your athletes just want the praise and want more. And they come after it hard, and it just keeps them driving because, there's just, I don't know, it just keeps motivation there. And everyone can always do better. Yeah, it's probably what I'll ultimately be remembered for, but I'm okay with that because I know it drives people forward.